What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. Multiple different things going on here that you got to know about here. We're going to cover multiple different things. Let's jump right in. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to click the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on new videos. It's completely free to do so. Here we go. First, our thoughts and prayers goes out to the entire state of Alaska as there is a storm there covering the entire state. Look at how massive this storm is. The Alaska governor has declared a disaster as a huge storm floods roads and homes as a natural disaster has been declared. Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy has declared a state of disaster Saturday as a powerful storm threatens huge swaths of the state's western coastline. Towns are facing strong winds and flooding and bracing for possible power outages caused by a storm forecasters are calling one of the worst in the state's recent history, producing a potentially historic and long duration of a storm's surge. The remnants of Typhoon Merbok are expected to bring moderate to heavy rainfall in the region until Sunday morning. A very angry sea in the community of Port Nome and Fairbanks, Alaska. Also in San Diego, their tropical storm K was so much flooding it sent a plane off the runway with high winds, storms, and rain. So California and Alaska affected here. You can see how bad this was. Parts of Mexico as well. So you can see here drastic storms here still affecting the United States. We've seen massive storms here from Mississippi, really all over parts of the United States here that just will not quit. This has been quite a summer. Could the war be coming to an end? Maybe. Russian President Putin tells Indian Prime Minister from India, quote, he'll stop the Ukraine invasion that he ordered, quote, as soon as possible, after the Indian leader criticized Putin directly to his face. Remember that India and China both have around like 1.3 billion people. They're both kind of tied for the world's largest population. They're both kind of allies with Putin. They both buy oil directly from China. So they're both kind of on Putin's side, and Putin's kind of short on allies. So he really doesn't want to, he doesn't want to lose allies here. And he took his words pretty seriously here. Yeah, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi criticized Russia's war in Ukraine while meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin face to face while both were in Uzbekistan for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, saying, quote, I know that today's era is not an era of war, and I have spoken to you on the phone about this. He said this now publicly. Putin told the Indian leader, I know about your position on the conflict in Ukraine, and I know about your concerns. We want all of this to end as soon as possible. Well, we know that Putin wants this to end in his favor. That doesn't seem to be going that way right now. Putin said, we understand your questions and concerns in this regard. During today's meeting, of course, we will explain in detail our position on this issue. Although we have spoken about this before, so he kind of had to explain himself to the Indian leaders of the country of India. So, yeah, he's kind of having to explain himself right now, which is not really a good position for him to be in. As you can see here, China and India have close ties with Russia and Moscow. and have continued to buy its oil and gas and coal as Western nations have moved to cut their purchases. But foreign policy experts and Russia watchers say that the war in Ukraine appears to be driving a major wedge in their relations. Quote, having been thrashed on the battlefield, Putin is getting thrashed at the conference table too. Doesn't take much clairvoyance to see that the Chinese President Modi, and others are deeply annoyed by the fallout from Russia's war in Ukraine. Stunning erosion of Russia and Putin's diplomatic position, said Hal Brands, a professor of global affairs at Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. Quote, nobody likes losers, and he's losing now in Ukraine, says Michael McFaul, the former U.S. ambassador to Russia. So, could this be the beginning of the end of the war? We will see. You could see here Ukraine reclaims more territory, reports capturing many prisoners of war. In his evening address, Ukrainian President Zelensky said his forces have liberated more than 6,000 square kilometers, over 2,300 square miles in the east and the south since the beginning of September. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think we could be nearing the end? Do you think the war could end by the end of this year? Or do you think this will drag on into 2023? Let's hope not. Let's hope that we can finally get an end to this. We can stop sending money and supplies over there. So can other countries. We can stop seeing gas prices. Natural gas prices are just being completely ravaged right now. Those have actually about tripled in price over the last 6 months here, worldwide. So natural gas prices have gone from about $350 a unit to like $9 a unit in natural gas. A lot of people in America and worldwide use natural gas to heat their homes. And we've seen the natural gas, obviously diesel, gasoline, and all sorts of gas and oil just go completely much higher than normal. And it would be interesting to see if the war ends or when the war ends in Ukraine, what would happen afterwards? Because it's not like the US and the European Union, basically all of Europe, is just going to go back to buying Russian oil. So if you think about that, all of Russia, massive country, the second or third largest producer of oil, natural gas, all these different types of crude oil. They're the second or third largest producer of oil, different types of oil, natural gas of the world. And the US isn't buying any of it. Europe is really being cut off from it, whether it's Europe saying they're going to not buy it or Russia saying they're not going to supply it. One way or another, Europe is realizing that they can't depend on Russia. This has caused the price of all these different oils, natural gas, and gasoline and diesel to go up because the second or third largest supplier in the world has been cut out of these literally dozens and dozens of countries. So it's created a shortage in the market of supply. So when there's a shortage of supply, price goes up. And remember, this is a worldwide thing, okay? You could see this in natural gas prices. They've just gone from $3.50 a unit to $9 a unit. So we've seen this with oil, which heavily affects the price of gas worldwide, not just in the US. Gas prices in Europe have been, remember, we hit a high of about $5 a gas or $5 a gallon of gas here in the US. Of course, they've come down pretty dramatically. We went down for about 80 days in a row here for the US. We've kind of settled here a little bit right now. But remember, so we hit a high of about $5 a gallon on an average. Of course, we know California was much higher. They have much higher taxes and a different blend of gasoline, but that was our average in the U.S. But remember that a lot of countries in Europe actually hit 7, 8, and $9 a gallon gas, depending on the country. So um, it's actually a lot worse in a lot of other places, and everybody is kind of dealing with the same thing. And now it's really affecting natural gas as well. So this is really going to be an ongoing thing. So even if the war ends, there's really still the elephant in the room of nobody wants to buy gas from Russia or oil from Russia. And even if the war ends, it still affects the price. So even though the US doesn't buy any oil from Russia at all, it's still basically the situation is that the number 2 or number 3 supplier, nobody wants to buy oil or gas from them. So that creates a shortage in the market. And when there's a shortage in the market, the price goes up. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens when and if the war ends. I mean, I think we all don't think the war is going to go on forever, but we want the war to end because we don't want to see a nuke happen. We don't want to see a nuclear situation happen, either from a nuclear reactor or an actual nuclear bomb, which would be even worse. Neither of them are good situations, but we don't want to see either happen. Okay, so we want the war to end because that would be the good thing. We need to see that end. That will bring that should bring gas prices and oil prices down just because the situation and the tension and stuff like that. But then we really got to solve the long-term problem of what do we do with the supply shortage of gas and oil? Even though the U.S. doesn't buy any of it, that's what people got to understand here. Even though we don't buy a drop of it, there's still this it'd be like taking Saudi Arabia out of the equation. Okay, you create that massive. Just think of supply chain shortage. It'd be like cutting China out of the equation for goods. I think we all kind of know right now that if you walk down the aisle of Walmart or CVS or any store you go to, a lot of the stuff is made in China. Plastics, toys, and mops, and anywhere. If all of a sudden we got in a war or a trade war or dispute with China and we said or they said no more goods, we'd have a serious problem because we just don't make everything in the United States. And first of all, we just don't make enough here. And second of all, a lot more things are expensive here. And the reason why entrepreneurs and companies and everything has kind of gravitated towards that is because it's cheaper. So if you go from, buying, and again, most food is made here in the United States because it's perishable and stuff like that. But if you go from buying, cleaning supplies, and let's just say your average cleaning supply is $2 or $4 or whatever it is, if all of a sudden every single cleaning supply you had to buy would be double, you got to think about how expensive, your grocery bill is now. Well, imagine if every single thing you had to buy that wasn't food was all of a sudden double now. And I'm just kind of throwing numbers out there, but you just walk down the aisle in Walmart, things that aren't food, turn around the box and just look on things that aren't like perishable food and see. Walk down an aisle anywhere. And it's not just Walmart. Walmart's not picking, CVS, your local store, anywhere. And just see and see if it says where it's made. You'll see that a lot of things are not made in the US. And it's not that companies or shoes, clothing especially, very, very few clothing is made in the US. It's not that companies don't want to make it in the US because they do. It would be easier. You would have to ship it over from China. Um, it's just cheaper. It's cheaper by a long shot because think about it, they got to ship it all the way over from China. Companies don't want to do that. Think about how much easier it would be to just have it already here in the US and just ship it right to the store. They got to deal with all that logistics and communications, having it manufactured over there. It's just cheaper by a long shot. So And just think if every single piece of clothing you had to buy was made in America, it would just be a lot more expensive. So we would like to have more things made in America, but it would also be much more expensive. And you got to kind of think about right now how expensive groceries are right now, and everybody's kind of complaining about how expensive grocery bills are, how expensive gas is. Imagine if everything was 25% more, 50% more. It wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good. Now you kind of always can have you could kind of say, well, could be better quality, could be better quality. Could be. It could be. That's a good case to make. You could say that. The other thing though is that we just don't have the capacity to do it. If you just suddenly think about the toilet paper shortage we had, just with that alone, if you kind of remember that back from 2020, we had a toilet paper shortage just when there was just a run on the market, just the demand for toilet paper because people just said, "Oh my God, I got to go get toilet paper," and all of a sudden we ran out of toilet paper just because people decided I need to go buy it now. And think about how quickly we ran out of toilet paper just because people decided I got to go buy it and there was none left. Okay. Imagine if there was demand because we couldn't get anything from China. We physically would the stores would be bare because we can't just start making all this stuff here in the US when we don't now. That type of shift in manufacturing, we'd be in really in deep trouble because we just don't make it here. I mean, we make some stuff here, sure, but surely not enough to replace the tens and hundreds of millions of stuff that are not made in the U.S. right now on a global scale. So just imagine if something like that happened. Imagine if something like that happened. You can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. But that would create an economic collapse. Just imagine when we had the run on toilet paper, the chaos of toilet paper shortage. Imagine if we had a global trade war imagine if we had a war with China. Um, and all of a sudden now we weren't trading with China and they weren't trading with us. And all of a sudden something like that happened. Could you imagine the chaos it would do between our country and theirs? First of all, they wouldn't be making any money off us sending anything over here. But on the reverse, we wouldn't be getting any goods from them either. So, imagine what our shelves would be like. Now, it would make us realize that we got to make a lot more things here in the US, which would be a good thing, I guess. But imagine what the inflation would be like as well as we make a lot more things in the U.S. I mean, you got to remember that a lot of states have $15 an hour minimum wage. You know, what's the minimum wage in China? A couple dollars an hour. It's just completely different world over there. They're making things at pennies. That's and then of course the shipping's kind of makes up for it, when you ship it over here in bulk and stuff. That's kind of where, the cost adds up, but it's still that's why companies like Nike and, all these major companies, they make stuff in bulk over there because it's just cheaper. Now we're starting to see some companies in sophisticated stuff like chip companies and stuff, Nvidia and Intel make things here in the United States. So those are sophisticated stuff. That's big money stuff, Intel and stuff. But when it comes to cheaper, just plastic stuff, like household goods, soap, things like that, I mean, we just don't see a lot of that stuff made here in the US. Because if they did, then it would just cost more. We just see inflation go through the roof. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. I mean, it would probably, I don't know, double people's grocery bill and stuff. So it's just, and this type of stuff has just happened over decades and decades and decades. You think of made in Taiwan as well, just all these other kind of countries here. It just hasn't been made in the US for a long time. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country on a daily basis that you need to know about. Make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here to watch my newest video about checks going out to millions of Americans. And you can click here to watch my newest video about Social Security raises of $2,400. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.